Morning, welcome to the lending update for March 21st, right? Yep, 2025. Thanks for joining me. Let's talk about what we saw in the news this week as it relates to mortgage interest rates, what's impacted mortgage interest rates. Been a good week, really, overall for mortgage interest rates. We'll get that chart a little bit later. We'll start with mortgage applications. Purchases were flat week over week. Refinances down 13% in activity. So first time in a few weeks, we've seen that trend down. Claims, those filing for unemployment for the first time, up 2,000, so pretty mild week over week. And continuing was up 33,000, but no market moving information there. This week, we did get retail sales for the month of February, and this is not surprising. It was a miss. The headline number came in positive by 0.2%, but the expectation was 0.6%. The headline number was up 1%, but what kind of tempered the reaction to the increase in the core number was the fact that the January number was revised lower. So we'll see next month if the February number gets revised lower. We'll see. And now this week was the Fed meeting. Pretty important. What we got out of that meeting, the notes that we got was basically the Feds are taking a more hawkish position right now. What that means to you is that there's less probability that we'll see any short-term rate cuts in excess this year. Maybe 2 is the thought now versus 4. What that means to you is that your payments on equity lines, credit cards, car loans, student loans on variable interest rates won't see much change this year. Don't project to see any activity actually in May. But let's take a look at some of the notes that we got from the Fed meeting. One of the things that they did comment on was that they were going to taper down their purchases on treasuries from 25 billion to 5 billion. So that's part of the quantitative easing, the easing that came about from COVID. So they've been talking about this for a while, but it's not going to impact the MBS securities. That's going to remain unchanged at 35 billion. What they did say was they felt that the employment rate has stabilized and has been at a low level for recent months, and that the labor market conditions remain solid. What that says to me is they clearly haven't been in the market for a new job anytime in the recent past. That's certainly not what I'm hearing from people. It has been difficult to secure new employment for those that have been laid off or are looking for new employment. Just a note in there, the Fed member Waller did dissent to agreeing on the pause, but did not agree with the balance. He did agree with the pause on the treasuries, but didn't agree with the balance sheet reduction. So interesting just to note there. Also within this meeting, what we got was their projections, the changes I wanted to show you between what their view was in December versus now. You can see their projection for unemployment rate was at 4.3% in December. They do expect it to be 4.4% this year. And GDP in December, they thought it would be 2.1%. They did revise that lower to 1.7% now, so they expect less growth in the economy through 2025. For core PCE, this is their favorite measure of inflation. They do expect that to tick up this year a little bit. That might be reactionary to the tariffs being imposed, although it is a one-time impact to consumers. They do expect that those tariffs could possibly impact the PCE numbers and inflation. And then the Fed's fund rate, this is their initial for cutting short-term interest rates. It was at 2. They did project 2 cuts in 2025. That hasn't really changed. It's 2 cuts now, but I'm going to show you a little dot chart on this. What the Feds do is they do an anonymous vote on what they expect, and you can see the number of members, the voting members here, where the majority changed. There were more projected cuts. It only balances out because of the way the numbers, when you average them out, the indication of more members saying there won't be any cuts when it was 1 before. Now there are 4 saying that. And it's still the same number of people saying 2. What was it, 10 members in December, and 9 of them saying that for next year now. So that's the only reason why it's the same. But you can see the shift in their demeanor with fewer people, more people projecting no cuts. So interesting to note there. Also within the meeting, they vote on this. It's anonymous, so we don't know who's voting how, but this is the indication of the unemployment rate. You can see here within this chart that there is some expectation by a few members that if the unemployment rate could go up to 4.6 or 4.7% this year. Nobody's going to say it out loud, but that's where the projections are. Also, this week, we did get existing home sales. There was kind of a lot of buzz on this just because the number came out so good for February. But what we did see was a 4.2% increase month over month. So it beat expectations. And then the median home price at $395,400. But again, that is the national average. Colorado is like $649,000 for our median home price. And median, remember, just that is the number of homes where that number is where 50% of the homes sold over that price and 50% sold below. Is not an actual average of home sale prices, just where, right in the middle there of all the sales. So it is driven very much by price points. Inventory showing at 1.3 month over month, which is fine, not bad. Again, inventory continued to be a problem just because we have more demand than we have with the actual number of homes out there. But it's nice to see that we're still in the positive here and that we're not walking backwards on inventory at this point. For the supply, we are at 3.5 months supply. Remember, a standard market is 4.6. And then right now, 42 days on the market. That has ticked up a little bit. It's slowing down a little bit. Thank you, Shadow, for joining me. But slowing just a little bit. Homes not moving quite as fast. Then also within this report, the internals, which I always like to point out, which is really nice to see, we are seeing that homes have sold, 21% have sold over list. So this does mean that homes are selling over list price still, even with the market being slower, even with rates being up, the high 6% right now. And it's actually more than last year, year over year, just to tick up. And first-time home buyers now making up 31% of those purchasing homes, which is really good to see. So nice to see first-time home buyers getting in there, not beat out despite the higher interest rates. Cash buyers at 32% and investors at 16%. So that is where we are right now. Now, one thing I also wanted to point out, what was reported today is that FedEx did cut their projections for business again for a third quarter in a row. And the reason why I bring this up is because FedEx is a major distributor of goods and supplies. So they have a good handle on what's going on with purchasing and sales. They're kind of an indicator for what the economy is doing. So if they're projecting lower projected business sales, lower, shipping goods, that speaks to the fact that they also see the economy slowing down. So that's had a bit of a impact on the MBS markets today. We'll take a look at this right now. We did start in the green, but we're actually down a little bit right now as that kind of news trickles out. But this week overall has been a good week for the MBS markets, which means we've seen the interest rates tick down a little bit, not a lot. It's more impacted by the pricing on interest rates with this kind of movement in the market. But nonetheless, good to see right now interest rates probably in the mid to high sixes, depending upon your particular situation. If you do have any questions for me, please reach out to me. I do appreciate when you watch my videos, like my videos. Means a lot to me, helps me. And like I said, if you have questions, reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those for you. Otherwise, have a great weekend. I will see you next week.